天我们非常的荣幸在这里迎接我们市长候选人杨安泽和市议员候选人李金枝拜访我们闽籍侨团，拜访我们唐人街。刚才我也带了去看我们的东百老汇的移动楼。移动楼现在的里面的情况是非常的凄惨，在疫情发生以后，整个这个移动楼全部受到非常严重的打击。我就跟杨安泽说了，我是希望他当上市长以后，能够帮助我们怎么样的重建这个移动楼，重建我们的East Broadway东百老汇。那么今天我很高兴，就是有这么多的闽籍侨领出席来这个支持，来这个背书。支持我们2位，一位是市长候选人杨安泽，一位是第1选区的市议员李金枝。我们在这里再一次的祝贺他们，恭祝他们能够早日的这个竞选成功，当选市长和市议员。
Mr. Andrew Yan, Mr. Cicely, and distinguished guests. We're grateful to have all here on East Broadway in Chinatown today. I'm Kenny Chan, President of the United States Fujian Association of America, and the organizer of today's event. Now let me introduce to you the Fujianese community leader and the guests attending today. American Association President Xue Duanchen, Fujian Foundation in USA Acting President, right here. And so many guests here I can, to introduce right now. Now I'm going to start the program. As you know, Andrew Yang recently won the President of the United States in 2020 election. Being a son of Chinese American immigrants, he is the pride of joy of our community. Although he did not win the Democratic nomination, but he already made the history. Now he is running to be the mayor of the greatest city in the world. We, the Fujianese community leader here today, extend to our endorsement and fully support for Mr. Yan, and we would like also to endorse for the Gigi Lee for the New York City 1st District Councilwoman. We trust in her to do a great job with her experience as the Chief of Staff of the current Councilwoman, Margaret Chin. Gigi has been working with the Fujianese community for many years, partnering with us on census turnout, delivering food to our seniors, and was the only Asian American community board chair to represent us in CB3. That's it. Please welcome Andrew Yan to the stage as our community leader has a present small gift for Andrew Yan. Nice. Yeah. And also you can one mask like this. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Looking good. Looking good, right?
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you all for being here today. this means a lot to our community and to me personally. I grew up the son of immigrants myself, but we just visited a mall that has been now essentially abandoned, that is owned by the city. There are vacant storefronts where these stores were very busy and vibrant not that long ago. The reality is that Asian American retail districts and neighborhoods like this one have been hit as hard as any other community by the coronavirus pandemic. And part of it is that the relief that so many small businesses have received has not necessarily reached the business owners here in this community. But also, we should acknowledge that there's been an increase in racism against Asian Americans, and that includes folks being reluctant to come into areas like this one to be able to shop and have fun with their families. So grateful to be standing aside Gigi Lee, who is the candidate that I'm endorsing for City Council in District 1. She's been working for years tirelessly on behalf of community members here. Let's get Gigi Lee into City Hall. And I'm thrilled to be accepting the endorsement of the Bhutanese American Association, the Bhutanese Association of USA, the Changi Association of USA, and the other organizations that are here today. These organizations represent the small business owners that have been the lifeblood of this community and so many others. And frankly, they haven't really asked for much over their history. They just want to be able to operate their businesses, provide for their families, provide services that are enjoyed by the local community. If you take our biggest example, let's call it Broadway. Broadway is going to be receiving a ton of aid, which I love. Thank you, Chuck Schumer. It's totally appropriate to get tourists back coming into our city. But we can't forget about the small business owners right here in Chinatown who need relief in a similar way, just they aren't quite as visible as some of the business owners in other parts of the city. I'm going to do everything I can to change that. It would be a real privilege for me to be the first Asian American mayor in our city's history, and I'm excited to take on everything that represents. Thank you all so much for the support and for being here today. And I think now we're going to hear from the next City Council member from District 1 here in Chinatown.
Thank you, Andrew. First, I want to thank my longtime friend Kenny Chan and, of course, Jimmy Chang for organizing today's event. Jimmy and I served on Community Board 3 together for many years. Look, I think that East Broadway is a prime example of the community, the type of small businesses, the type of investments that we really need to make sure benefit from the money that's coming down from DC, that's coming down from the state. These are small mom and pop stores that have, sometimes if you look at these cubicles inside these malls, right, they are very small, but they represent the opportunity that immigrants come to the United States, come to New York City, and that is their dream. The dream that they can start small, become bigger, and provide for their family, endorsed by so many prominent organizations that represent Chinatown. I have worked with them in the past, and I look forward to representing them in City Council. Thank you.
I suppose I will step back in there and take the rest of it.
Give us some specific details about how you bring neighborhoods like this and bring neighborhoods back to life.
Well, one of the sites that Kenny brought me to is actually owned by New York City. It's a vacant mall, a lot that has that much potential. And there's a way for us to enlist proposals and make it a draw and an attraction instead of right now, frankly, an empty shell. So that's something very specific we can do in this neighborhood. Bigger picture for small businesses, we proposed a People's Bank that would channel tens of millions of dollars to community development financial institutions that are investing in minority-owned businesses in communities like this one. We have to do a lot of things. We have to certainly try to get relief through the small business services and the business districts and the chambers of commerce.
You mentioned it in your remarks about the increase in community and the Asian group for ongoing now for well over 2 months, even longer. What do you specifically recommend? You're running for candidate now. What do you say to your colleagues? What can be done about it now? And what would you do different as mayor?
Well, we have to send a very clear message that there's no place for hatred in New York City. You should be investing in the anti-Asian hate crime task force that was not volunteers of the NYPD. But I do want to share a story that I think many of us will understand. A number of weeks ago, I went to Staten Island on the Staten Island Ferry, and a man attacked a photographer who was with us and shoved him with a stick, a pole that he had. I and my team then managed to de-escalate that situation, and when the police came, the man was no longer violent and he departed. A number of weeks later, that same man on the Staten Island Ferry violently assaulted an elderly Asian man on the subway. And so if you see that second incident where you say, okay, an elderly Asian man was attacked on the subway, it reads as a hate crime, because why on earth would you attack an elderly Asian man on the subway? But having met that individual a few weeks prior, I know that he was mentally ill. And right now, a lot of New Yorkers recognize that we need to increase the number of psych beds and the level of mental health resources so that New Yorkers who are struggling, like this man, have a place to go to seek help instead of, frankly, waiting for them to do something regrettable on the streets of New York.
Fair enough, but it's not only mental issues that people are, the ones that are doing the attacking. There's also
it's a
an
combination
increase
of
in
things.
hatred.
That's why you need to try and invest in resources. You need to try and build bonds of connection and trust, because I guarantee you that many Asian Americans are not reporting the assaults that they're experiencing, and there are probably people here that can relate to that directly. So we need to try to build those connections so that Asian Americans and members of any community in New York City feel comfortable coming forward with their experience, and that they can seek assistance from either city agencies or law enforcement.
What are we going to do about voter turnout for AAPI? There's a lot of language restraints that prevent participation in the political system that, we need to create that structural power in order to start to shift all of this that's happening in the current landscape.
Well, that's one reason why I think events like today's are so important, is you have leaders from across the Asian American community that are saying this election means a great deal to everyone, and we need to get out and vote. And I'm one of the first people to say, I grew up the son of immigrants. We did not talk about American politics in my household. I still have no idea what my parents thought about American politics is crucial to our future, and that in particular this election, I think, will be enormously meaningful in terms of the trajectory of our city moving forward. Thank you all so much.
We're gonna support Andrew Yan! Mayor Andrew Yan! Andrew Yan for the mayor!
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Oh my gosh,
It doesn't matter where.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you very much.